It's the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Tune in, tune in, tune in, tune in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. Before we get into this episode, a few quick announcements. If you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review on whichever platform you're listening to this on. This helps us go up in the rankings and reach more people with this important message. And we're also shouting out all 5-star reviews. So if you do leave a 5-star review, you can expect a shout out on an upcoming episode. Also, if you want to join the Bread Real Estate Investing community, you can start for your first week for just $1. If you're interested, go to blackrealestatedialogue.com or click the link below in the show notes. Very excited for this episode today. Here with me, I have Justin Green out of Philadelphia. Justin, thank you so much for joining the show tonight.
No, thank you for having me, man. I definitely appreciate it for sure.
And I got to give you a shout out for your mic. This is probably about to be the Christmas audio in a minute.
Okay, great. Yeah. My wife bought this for me for, I think, a Father's Day gift.
Nice.
So big shout out to her. So I said, listen, I need a mic. I need to get set up the right way. And she bought this for me. So yeah.
Shout out to her. Yeah. Awesome, man. So first, just tell the people more about who you are, where you're from, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I'm from Philadelphia, from South Philadelphia to be exact. I'm a former teacher. So I love teaching. I have an undergraduate degree in teaching and went back to school to get my graduate degree in teaching as well too, or education. So I'm a teacher, right? That's what I love to do. And growing up in Philadelphia, truthfully, it was either when you finish high school, if you did finish high school, you were either going to be on the street, meaning like selling drugs, be in jail, dead, or, for those that were able to now rise above the crime and things of that nature, you are now going to be in the workforce where you're trying to achieve the American dream, right? So that's my goal. That was my goal. Achieve the American dream, become a professional, pursue these degrees, and then I should be safe and secure for my whole life. Now that wasn't how things work. So I wound up actually being threatened with a layoff. And there I am. I have a master's degree. I'm the head honcho at my job. I have a nice paying salary, benefits, and they like, listen, you getting probably laid off. So me being the man I am, not quitting, not giving up. And then at that time I had, I think my oldest daughter, she's 16 now, but I think she was about, I don't know what, maybe 8 back then. My youngest daughter was probably around 2. And so it was like, listen, I got to make sure my wife and family are okay. Mm-hmm. So I started to get into real estate from there. So just from Philadelphia, know how to grind it out, know how to, build and not quit. And then ultimately know how to look past the American dream, because what they sold us, in my opinion, was really a lie. To get a job, work it from 9 to 5 for 40 plus years or more and retire at age 65 or 63, it's just not, there's no freedom in that, Mm-hmm. So just me knowing that I had to do something different to kind of get where I am today.
Definitely. Love it. And then we'd love to hear more about growing up, because you mentioned your goal was the American dream. So I'm curious, when it comes to building wealth and financial freedom, was there anything you saw like that growing up, or maybe something you didn't see, or that was the complete opposite of it growing up?
Right. So good question. So my family were really blue collar workers, right? My grandfather was a prison guard. So my whole life, my whole growing up, I knew him as a prison guard. My grandmother worked in the school system. She was like a noontime aide. She did workshops for like parents and things of that nature. And my mom worked in insurance and then went to the post office. So my family is blue collar workers, right? And I just saw them work hard to be able to provide for my family, right? Mm-hmm. And then on the flip side, though, I saw my uncle, and he was really struggling in life. So I would see him in jail, and go visit him consistently every single summer, where I thought it was like a vacation. I'm like, yo, we're going to see Unc. We're going to see him, in the orange suit. And I thought it was cool because when I saw him, he was a cool dude. But I didn't realize until I got older, maybe 10 or 11, I'm like, yo, I'm really going to to jail to actually see him. And he would come home every now and then go back to jail. So I just knew that there was dynamics, right? Where you had people that were working, and unfortunately people that, were in the street and then went to jail and then had a hard time adjusting when they came back home and things of that nature. But my uncle now has been sober for, I want to say 14 years now. He's been out of jail since my daughter was young. So he's been out of jail. It'll be 17 years in about 3 or 4 months, I think. So, he's a testament to him changing his life around. So big shout out to my uncle. He's 60 right now, no, 61. So my whole childhood, I saw him in and out of jail for 20 plus years. But now, like, he's on track now. So big shout out to him, doing great things.
Definitely. So you mentioned that you had a turning point, right? You were at work, you were doing really well, leadership, and just, I'm sure, thriving at the job. And you were faced with the fact that you might be laid off. Take us back to that moment, and what was going through your head, and what told you it was real estate? Because you could have went into a number of different businesses and things, but why real estate? What was it about real estate where you're like, all right, I'm faced with this. I think real estate is what can take me higher.
Right. So honestly, in that moment, when I heard the news, I was in survival mode, right? I mean, once again, I'm married, 2 young kids. And also, I didn't mention that I've been laid off before my other previous jobs, right? Wow. Because education is based off of funding. If you don't have the funding, then you don't have a job or no program, right? So me knowing the feeling of being laid off in my previous jobs, and now me feeling like, I have a master's degree, and this is my first job after having the degree. So I'm like, well, you know what? I'm set. I have a master's degree. I manage my office. I'm a boss there. I should be good. Right? Didn't work out that way. So my mind was like, man, this is crazy how you could think you're secure, but you're really not. So the reason I turned to real estate is because I had a few people in my church that were already doing real estate. And so I'm a big believer in teaching and learning from people. So when I saw them doing it and having success, it was nothing for me to just go to them and say, hey, I see you're doing this, I want to do something. I need something for my family to build income. So really, truthfully, it wasn't even about wealth at that point. It was about, how do I provide an income for my family independent of a job? Mm-hmm. Right. And so with the guys at my church, they were already doing real estate. And so I tapped into them and just started getting coached by them.
Love it. Talk to us about what those beginnings were like, just the different things you were learning, and just what it was like as a beginner, just learning about something that you probably didn't have too much exposure to before.
Right. So I really leaned on my mentors, and then I have an excellent realtor that guided me as well too. So I've always been able to save money. I've been able to manage money well. So the money aspect wasn't really, an issue for me, right? But the construction piece, the rehab, that was all new. So I had to really lean on a good contractor to guide me in the right direction. Now, one of the good things that happened within that transaction of me buying my first rental property, because that was my first time buying a property for an investment, is that the loan I was able to get from Wells Fargo, it was a construction loan that tied into the purchase price. So for the construction loan, they had a lot of parameters, right? So you had to do your budget. You had to submit to them your budget before you even started the project. Then they had a draw schedule where you put your own money out first, and then their inspector would come look at it, give the approval, and then give you the next draw, right? So those are a lot of hand holding that I didn't expect from Wells Fargo, but they did a good job with making sure that I wasn't too over my head, and they really walked me through the process as well too, right? So I had a good contractor, and then on top of that, I had a good inspector with that draw schedule piece. And then obviously we had permits and things of that nature. So it really alleviated some anxiety because I had so many other things lined up.
Definitely. Definitely. And there's a couple of things I want to pull out of that before we move forward. So the first thing is we're like 10 to 15 minutes in. I can already pick up a theme that you're very big on learning from others. You're very big on mentorship. And something that I've observed is that some people have a lot of pride and they don't want to learn from someone else, right, even if it's something they haven't done before. So can you talk about the importance of mentorship, especially as it comes to real estate? When you think about like construction, when you think about managing contractors, a budget, all these things, for most of us, we haven't done it before. So it could be to our benefit to connect with someone who can mentor us. So I would love to hear more of your thoughts about the importance of mentorship.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, mentorship in every aspect of life is important, right? I look back at at growing up, my dad wasn't around. He's passed away now, but we didn't have a relationship. So growing up, it was me and my friends, and we were just trying to learn how to be boys and be men. And a lot of times we would follow, the hip hop culture to learn how to be men, which is not a right thing to do in regards to just getting your identity as a man from hip hop culture, right? So it wasn't until I got into college where I started like getting feedback and mentoring from like positive Black men that were like doing really positive things in college and advising me the right way. So I was like, well, wait a minute. If you're telling me this and this rap song is telling me this, I can see how this particular song or particular mindset in culture. Cause I mean, listen, I love hip hop, but I'm simply saying there's some aspect of it growing up that I didn't know was wrong, right? In the sense of the way I didn't want to go, right? So when you start hearing things that are different from what you're normally hearing, right? Like, hey, listen, you don't have to have sex with every woman that you see, right? And you start understanding like, whoa, that advice is different from what I'm normally hearing, but the advice that I'm getting, I see if I follow that, I'm going in the right footsteps. I'm going in the right path. Then you start realizing like, I don't have to bump my head too many times to know to go in the right path, right? And there's a Bible verse that I love where Jesus talks about, how can people hear without a teacher, right? So that just talks about the importance of teaching, of learning, and having a teacher or a mentor. So my experience in life is really that I need to surround myself with people that can help build me up and guide me in the right direction, right? So I'm really big on mentorship once again. And I wasn't always big on paying a coach, but I realized that to go to another level, I had to pay someone to really give me the guidance I needed to now take it to another level.
Love it. Love it. And I want to talk about the next level. So you mentioned paying a coach, which is something else. So there's I feel like there's levels to it, right? There's the idea of mentorship in general. And then it's like, all right, I got the idea of mentorship. I find something that I want to do. For this example, let's say real estate. I see someone who has a track record, receipts, and so forth. I'm in position to compensate them for their time so they can help me get to the next level faster, but I'm hesitant. What do you say to someone who is in that position? Like, you have everything you need, and the person, let's say, is Justin, is here to help you, but you're scared to pull the trigger. How do you approach that?
I think that you have to look at the road to get to your goal, right? If you want, and I'm not selling myself at all, I'm just simply saying in general, if you want to take the long road and difficult road, then you don't need a mentor because you're going to take the bumps and bruises and learn on your own. If that's what you want to do, then that's totally fine. But a coach and a mentor is really there to prevent you from making some of the lessons that they may have learned on the way because they didn't have a mentor, right? So it's really designed to guide you in the right direction and not have you have pitfalls along the journey. That doesn't mean that you won't make mistakes along the way, but best believe that there's data and there's evidence for those people that came up with a parent, right? 2-parent family most times those kids or children, right, are in the right direction, where maybe if you didn't have any parents, you're kind of lost in the world, right? And so going back to my journey, one particular mentor I have, he really connected me with the contractor that I use to rehab my first property, and I bought that on the market. It was a pre-foreclosure sale. No, it was already foreclosed, but I bought it on the market. So after that property, I was now trying to buy another property, right? But I realized one thing I didn't forget is not to spend all your money in one project. So with that project, it was 20% down, and plus closing costs. So I wound up having to bring like $20,000 to the table, right? But I only had about $22,000 in my entire savings. So I only had $2,000 left out of what I spent for my deposit. So now I'm realizing that I can't buy the property or a different property the same way, simply because I don't have enough money. So the mentor that helped me with the first deal, as far as connecting me with the realtor and the contractor and things of that nature, he started doing off-market deals, right? He was probably doing it before I even knew about it. So he was telling me how that there's other ways to invest in real estate and buy real estate other than just buying it on the market and other than buy and hold. So he started, teaching me wholesaling. And what I would do is I would take him to lunch, take him to breakfast, pay for it, and really pick his brain. Mm-hmm. So that was the first or second level of mentorship, where now I'm like, all right, my first property is under wraps. Now him and I are friends as well too, right? So we go to the same church. First property is done. Now I'm trying to figure out this whole strategy around finding off-market deals. I started having success with that. Did some wholesaling with vacant lots and properties. And it came to a point where after years of doing that, probably 3 years or so, maybe 2, where I wanted to just now start really building a business around off-market deals, lead generation, things of that nature. So I asked them, well, listen, how do you set it up? Because right now I'm working like 2 jobs, right? Fortunately, I didn't get laid off, but I had my 9 to 5. I'm a husband, father, and I'm doing my off-market, my real estate business. I needed help. I need to figure out, like, how do I automate something? How do I now structure this as a real business? And at that point, he was like, well, listen, if you want to get to another level, then here is the payment arrangement that we have to go through, because now you're looking at more of a development of a business versus us just talking about, real estate through breakfast or lunch, or just kicking it and you're asking me questions. So I think when you start to get to a certain level, and it now is taking it to a point where you want to build a business, you got to figure out how to get there. And I think for me, that's through a coach and mentor.
Love it. So tell us more about this first deal. You mentioned that it was on the market and you receive a construction loan through Wells Fargo. Tell us more about the first deal, what it was like during the closing process and everything else.
Yeah, so it was crazy because I feel like we put an offer in on that property sometime maybe in February of 2012. And they rejected our offer. I knew that the property needed to be completely rehabbed. It was vacant for a while, so I knew that it needed not complete rehab, but for the most part, new kitchen, new bathroom, some new fixtures, right? So I put an offer in. I want to say the offer was maybe 23, and this was 9 years ago, but so I believe it was around 23,000. They said no. So I can remember this vividly. I'm on vacation sometime in I think July. I'm on vacation with my family. My realtor calls me and says, hey, remember that property in February that we put an offer on? The bank called us and said that they had an offer, but the person backed out. Do you still want it? They said, if you go to 25, you could buy the property. So I'm like, oh, word? I'm like, this is once again, 4 months later, 5 months later, I'm like, yeah. Really? So they was like, yeah. So I put the offer in. And I think from there, I knew I had to find financing, right? So I have good credit. And I always made sure that I had good credit. So I tapped into Wells Fargo, construction loan. on a 30-year mortgage. So that's excellent, right? They don't even offer that no more, but a 30-year mortgage, construction loan. And then they started doing the draw schedule with me, right? Closed on it. And I would never do the deal again the same way because it cost me too much money up front to close on the deal. But at that time, I didn't know anything else. I just knew you put a deposit down and you get to work. But now I know it's so many other ways: seller financing, subject to, private money. Everything that I do now, I didn't know at that point, right? So that just speaks to your development and progress as a person, where you start off at one level, but as you remain consistent and you start building and growing and reading and mentoring and things of that nature, you start going to another level and you start knowing different things that help you be better than years ago.
Definitely. And what I really love about that story is you mentioned in hindsight, you wouldn't have done the deal the same way, but I think it's a great thing that you went and did what you knew. Like you knew, all right, I need a down payment. I got this cool loan. This is cool. This is icing on the cake. But I'm glad that you went and did what you knew how to do. And I feel like in the age of the internet, it's very easy to get all psyched out because you see all these different things, all these different strategies. And what people fail to remember is like, you just need to pick one,
right?
Get enough information to try that one strategy, right?
Yep.
And then you just go from there. So I think it's great that you did that. And it's very possible that we wouldn't be sitting here right now if you didn't just go for it at that point.
Right. And it's crazy you said that, because sometimes I'll talk to some of my colleagues in Philadelphia that's been doing this since I've been doing it, right? And there's a neighborhood. So I'm from South Philly. So South Philly, back in the day, which is crazy, right? And recently, I would say probably started around 2014. There's been development, like major development in South Philadelphia. So there are properties that I fixed and flipped in South Philadelphia that sometimes we talk about, like, should I have kept on, should I have held on to those? Because, for example, one property I flipped, I bought it for 40. I put 100 into it. Maybe a little more because there was some issues with, I think the backyard. So maybe 105. So bought it for 40, put 105 into it, sold it for 200,000. That same property right now is worth about 325. And so, but back then, I'm like, yo, I'm making it come up. I bought it for 40. I put about 105 into it, sell it for 200. I mean, that's for me, just doing that's my second or third flip, I think. I'm like, that's good money. I'll take that all day long. But at that point, hindsight, I didn't understand the rental aspect, the rental property aspect, right? Of building wealth, landlord, cash flow. All I knew was fix and flip and wholesaling, right? For me, flipping is easy, right? Not easy, but flipping, the concept of the numbers, it makes sense. You buy it for a certain price, under value, right? Under market value, and then you flip it to make the value, right? Or to make a profit. So that comes easy to me as a concept, but it's a whole different level where now you got to think about the rental aspect of it, rental income, cash flow, tax strategies, appreciation, all that stuff comes into play. And so I think that those deals I did early in my career where I flipped them, I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't flipped those properties, because those properties I flipped caused me to have an influx of income that now I could put on a different property for a deposit or to purchase cash, where if I would have held onto it as a rental property, I would have had cash flow, but not enough money to now invest in a different property.
Definitely. Love it.
Are you looking for a community of like-minded individuals and access to experts in real estate?
Yeah.
Are you interested in real estate but need more support and guidance?
You know who it is?
The Black Real Estate Dialogue presents the Real Estate Investing Community. No matter how much or how little real estate experience you have, we've created a community for you because your perspective is important. All right, tell me, where's the number one place where you can do Q&A with experienced guest speakers 2 times per month? How about unlimited access to past guest speakers' recordings? What about a private Slack channel to engage in daily discussion with everybody in the community to share resources and support each other? Head on over to blackrealestatedialogue.com. That's blackrealestatedialogue.com. It's the real estate investing community presented by the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Come join us today.
Love it. So what was it like working with the contractors that first time on that first property? What were some highs and lows that you experienced during that first rehab process?
I would say trust, right? Not that he didn't do, not that he did anything wrong, but for me, when you're dealing with major money like that, like, the rehab budget, I think was like 42,000 or 40,000. And during that process, as people know, when you're renovating a house, you have different issues that come up that you wasn't aware of, right? So I can remember vividly that we started fixing the property up, and when we gutted out one of the walls in the bathroom, there was fire damage behind the walls because it had paneling on the walls. So we tore the wall, we tore the paneling down, and next thing we see all this fire damage. So we like, well, listen, we got to rewire the whole property now. So that was an extra, I think it was $3,000 just to rewire the whole house. And that wasn't in the budget. So we had to go back to the inspector and say, hey, listen, I need more of my draw because of X, Y, and Z. So I think the trustworthiness of me trusting the contractor, and then also being mindful that something out of the norm would happen, something unexpected would happen, which now I know happens really in every rehab. You just, it is what it is. I just finished one last month, and, I knew it needed a new roof, but I didn't know that it needed some extra siding on the side and capping and everything else. So, stuff happens.
Definitely. Was that first one, did it end up being a rental?
Yes. So I still own it to this day. Yep. I still own it.
Got it.
And it cash flows very, very well. And yeah, yep.
Got it. So next question, what was it like as a landlord for the first time? Like finding tenants, I'm not sure if it's single or monthly, but finding a tenant or tenants and that whole thing. So
single family, 3-bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that I treated it as a job, right? So I know myself, so I'm not handy at all. Like you'll never see me inside of a property swinging hammers, putting up drywall, nothing, right? So that's why I also went with rehabbing a property, because I knew that if I rehabbed it and did the full gut, that it wouldn't need any work done to it for maybe another 10 or plus years, right? So that's one reason why I do full rehabs to this day. But finding a tenant, I wanted to make sure that the person, their mannerism was, I would say, positive, right? Somebody I was able to not manage, but to be cordial with and to have a discussion, right? So that first time I was really looking for someone that could be able to hold a conversation. I'll be honest, right? Hold a conversation to not go crazy if something happens in the house and I can't get to it until tomorrow, right? So yeah, so I probably did a lot of things that were unlawful as far as finding a tenant. The first go around, asking probably questions that I should not have asked, but it was really trying to figure out, who's this person living in my house. And so I went through, the process of the application, credit screening and things of that nature to find the right tenant.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So you got your first property, you got a tenant, you did your first rehab. Where did things go from there? How did things start to develop for you in real estate from that point?
Yeah. So at that point, I was hungry to find the next deal, and I just couldn't find it. I couldn't find it the same way. So obviously, like any person really, once you have a good thing going, you want to go back to that same process and find a good deal, right? Find a good thing. So with me finding that property on the market, I said, well, I'll go back to the market and find the same type of deal. Didn't happen, right? I'm like, what is going on? So went back to the drawing board once again to my mentor. And so he talked to me about finding off-market deals, fixing and flipping, and wholesaling. So from that point forward, it's like, all right, well, I can figure out how to do this and then figure out how to now leverage my credit to finance some of these deals that I'm finding off the market. So I started looking at lines of credit, using credit cards to finance deals, things of that nature, way before it was popular to even use credit, right? Because now you hear it all on social media, credit lines and credit hacks. You know, I've been doing that since 2013, 2014, and people that been doing it before me. So I didn't originate it. It's just the fact that it's nothing new. You just leverage your credit, you leverage your good credit score, and you make it happen. So that's where I progressed with leveraging my credit as well as finding off-market deals. Got
it. So quick question. So on market, of course, and then you have off market. What are some strategies that you have used to find off market deals? Because, you know, it's like a buzzword, right? There's different strategies, right? You have mail, you have, you know, skip tracing, all these type of things. But what have you found that works for you with finding off market deals?
So in the beginning, I was hitting the street hard. So I was in the neighborhood driving and sometimes walking for dollars, right? And what I did was I went back to my old neighborhood. I identified that neighborhood as being gentrified, right? Where I knew it was coming down the pike. I saw development in certain areas. I saw the values rising. So I'm already from that neighborhood already. So I'm gonna stick within my neighborhood and I'm gonna walk, drive for dollars, take down addresses. And then from there, I skip traced them. And then for those that I talked to that were not interested, fine, put them on a follow-up list. For those that are interested, then I'm trying to figure out the numbers, right? For those that did not respond to my initial call, direct mail. So it's a mixture of things. But essentially my bread and butter back in the day was drive for dollars.
Definitely. Love it. And at that point, were you getting these deals and wholesaling them? Were you fixing and flipping, holding? Like, what was, I guess, your primary strategy at that time?
Yeah, so a lot of it was wholesaling and fixing and flipping, right? So a lot of wholesaling, fixing and flipping, somewhat. And the reason why I say somewhat is because I found that most of my wholesale deals, I was able to maximize the profit. Where if I would have held on to it and fixed and flipped it, it would have took me more time to complete the project because I got to rehab it, put it on the market, and sell it. Where if I wholesale it, I was making $30,000 off a wholesale deal. $50,000 off a wholesale deal. The whole reason, not reason, but one of the reasons why I resigned from my job in 2016, because I landed a deal where I bought the property in December of 2015 for $25,000, and then 17 days later, January 2016, I sold it for $135,000. So I made about $110,000 in 17 days. So when you do those type of numbers, it's like, oh, I need to say, all right, I'm out of here, right? So now obviously with that deal, I could have made more money if I would have fixed and flipped it, right? But listen, there's money for everybody. I'm not trying to be greedy. And then plus, I would have to, once again, rehab it for 3-4 months, get permits, inspections, and then put it on the market. Like, you never know what could happen. So I'm taking my money and rolling it out.
Yeah. You got the money and skip the headache.
Right. Exactly.
Amazing. So take us to the day that you actually left the job. You mentioned you had this big deal and you're like, I think it's time to do my own thing. Take us to that moment in time.
So that moment in time wasn't really until 6 months later. So that deal closed in January, and I didn't resign until July 1st. So even within that time period, I wasn't really thinking about resigning, right? Because I was still comfortable, right? I had benefits that were being paid through my job. I had my salary, and I had my real estate business. But what prompted me to really think seriously about resigning was that I felt stagnant at at my job. I felt like there was no progression. I felt like I was just a master at what I was doing. And I felt like my real estate business was, I saw the growth in that. I saw that I was able to grow that and really, you know, make a really true business out of that. So I didn't want to be stagnant. I said, you know what? Let me map this thing out, set some goals for myself, talk to my wife about leaving. And then July the 1st, I was out. So on that day, it was easy for me to leave, because I already had planned it out for several months prior to me having that deal. Right. I think for me, I'm a planner. I think for me, if I would have left that job after that deal, 2 weeks later, I wouldn't have been able to set myself up, for success, the right way, in a sense, plus with me being a manager on my job, I wanted to give my job time to find a replacement for me. So, I like leaving. I like, being professional and making sure that people are not just feeling a certain way about me leaving the job or, things of that nature. So yeah.
Definitely. And what were the conversations like with your wife during the time leading up to the resignation? Was she just like on board, or was it kind of more of convincing that needed to take place? What was that like?
Right. So so she was on board, because I showed her my plan. Right. So I'll be honest and say I showed her that I saved up 2 years of my salary. So I don't believe in like a plan B. However, when you have a wife and kids, you have to think about not just yourself, not just your dreams, not just your own goals, right? But the whole family. So my kids were in private school, and still are in private school. So it's like we got tuition, mortgage. So obviously I want to pursue my dreams and I want to build wealth for my family, but you do have to be mindful of who you are leading. So it was definitely a conversation around, my projections, my income. And I showed her 2 years of my salary that I saved up. And just in case something happened where it's like, yo, this is getting crazy, I don't have any deals. Well, now I have a whole 2 years to figure it out. Right. So that was the first thing. If I go back to my first property I bought in 2012, I messed that up as far as communication because I didn't necessarily walk her through the process of buying that property. My mindset was, I'm the provider, you follow me, I'm gonna do this. So I actually made a mistake, and took all our savings and just dumped it into that property without really walking her through the process of why I'm doing it, how I'm doing it, and how I get the money back. She knows I'm a great money manager, but that piece of communication just wasn't handled the way I should have handled it as a man, as a leader, as a husband towards my wife. So yeah, that's the story of that.
Love it. So you leave the job, but 5-6 years ago, and you have your time back, all of your time back. Mm-hmm. How did your business change from that point? Just having your time.
So I'll be honest and say having my time back was important, but it turned into a 9-to-5 again, right? Because you got to build it. You got to build your business. You can't just be waking up when you want to. So I was never a person just to wake up anytime, I would wake up early in the morning, pray, read the Bible, do my routine, and then get into work. So nothing changed. But for those that are listening, listen, you're an entrepreneur, but you can't just get up when you want to because you still got to build your business. So to this day, I still get up 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, do my routine, and then get to work because I really want to make sure that at a certain age, I could really step back and have the business become automated where I'm not doing everything in the business, right? Where it's, I work when I want to. So right now I'm still trying to get to that point. But as a business owner, you have to work on developing your business over time and then seeing it gradually become this well-oiled machine.
Definitely. And what was the focus for you, I guess, or what has been the focus for you over the past couple of years? Have you still done a mix of buying, wholesaling, and fix and flipping, or have you found yourself at any point, leaning more into one direction?
So I teach my students how to be a deal engineer, right? So that means that we're going to target off-market deals. And then when that deal comes our way, then we can figure out how to engineer that deal to make it make sense for our business, right? So in some cases, I still will wholesale the property because when I do my numbers and evaluate the deal, it just may not make sense for me to fix and flip it. And the cash flow may not be there for me to hold on to it and rent it out, right? So there's certain criteria we have within our deal buckets to make sure that we're putting these deals in the right bucket that makes sense based on criteria, right? So I do a mixture. I will say now that I turned 40, just in September, that I am looking to hold on to more stuff because once again, I don't want to have to work every single day. So right now I'm working every single day because I'm building my business, but eventually I want to be able to take a step back and work when I want to. So I'm not there yet, but it's about having those goals and understanding what freedom is really about. Because you can have financial freedom, but then not have freedom of your time. So right now I have financial freedom and I'm working on freeing up my time. I mean, I still have some of that because obviously I'm the boss. So no one dictates to me when I can go see my daughter at her school play, when I want to go see my daughter play soccer, when I want to have a day off and just chill, I can do that, right? But obviously, if I don't work, the business is not operating on its own just yet. It will get there eventually because I'm putting things in place now, but it's not operating automatically the way I want it to just yet.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So it seems like it's at a point where the priority is getting and finding deals.
Correct.
And when they come to the table, you figure out what to do with them.
Right. Yep.
Got it.
Yep. And as you mentioned that, right? One of the ways I got into buying and holding and using the Burr method is a good friend of mine. He's an investor, but also a GC. So I was using him on a few projects. And so I was going to wholesale these two properties in South Philadelphia because the assignment fees would probably be total, probably around like $90,000 for both properties. So I said, listen, I'm a wholesale them. But prior to me talking to him about the wholesaling piece, we had a conversation about, my goals as far as building wealth and having these units and things of that nature. So when I told him I'm a wholesaler, because all I saw was the dollars. I'm like, man, 90,000, I need that right now. So when he sat me down, he said, well, listen, we just talked last week about you wanted to build this portfolio. Why not forego the quick money and look into fixing it up and then renting it out and then building your cash flow, but now refinancing where you're able to get all your money back. So when I looked at it, I said, wait a minute, hold on. You're telling me that I could fix this property up, rent it out, and then refinance it and then get all my money back? And then that's that? He was like, yeah, try it out. So when we ran the numbers, right? Because I'm a numbers guy. Before I even started the project, I wanted to see the numbers. I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Like, I know it's going to be worth, X amount of dollars after I fix it up. I can see that there. If this bank is telling me that they're going to give me 80% loan to value once I fix it up, then it just makes sense. And I see the rental income that's bringing in X amount of dollars. I said, let me try this. So I started doing that. And then because I was finding off-market deals at a discounted price, in some cases, I was able to pull out more money than I actually put in. So for example, easy numbers, right? If I bought a property for $50,000 and I put 20 into it, right? I'm only in it at 70, but it appraises at 100,000. But the bank tells me, well, we'll give you a loan to value of 80%. Well, I'm only in it at $70,000. If I take out that extra 10 on the refinance side, right, out of the equity, I bring that home and that's tax-free money. And my cash flow is still there because I have a mortgage. So I said, when I found it out, I'm like, wait a minute, I got tax-free money and it's just coming to me like that with just tax-free. I said, man, listen, I gotta keep on doing this. So I got not hooked on it, but I started looking at other ways to do that same process and to do that on the same on other deals where I'm able to now generate, that income and take out more money than I actually put into it.
Definitely. It's basically like recycling money, and then in some cases you get a little bonus on top.
Exactly.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And then what I found out, a little nugget here, is at least with my bank, if you took out less than 80%, let's say you took out maybe 75%, instead of the loan term being 20 years, they would do a 25-year term. So that means that your mortgage payment is less because the term is longer. So man, when I started learning that, I'm like, man, this is like, why nobody taught me this when I was younger? Like, come on. Like, I mean, there's real estate around me all day long. I mean, you have your neighbors, you have real estate all around you, but no one ever sat me down and taught me this. I can't fault my parents. They didn't know about it. But when people are willing to pour into me and tell me things, and it's just like, yo, I got to grab onto it because I want to make sure that I use these same strategies and build wealth for my family and then teach my kids. So it's like, man, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So roughly, where does your portfolio stand now?
Yeah. So right now, we're doing, we're doing some duplexes right now and also single families. So by next year, we'll have a little bit more than 20 units. Nice. And so we're still doing wholesale and fixing and flipping. So I'm not streamlining it where it's just all buy and hold. Because I think that if you get stuck in a box, you can really get in trouble that way. I like to diversify and say, well, this property here, I'm a fix and flip. This one here, I'm a wholesale and things of that nature. So I don't just do all buy and hold. But obviously when it makes sense, I'll definitely keep it as an asset.
Definitely. Honestly, what I like about the way your business is structured is if you look at it from my perspective, you can't lose, right? Because there's one thing you're going to do for sure, right? It's find deals.
Right.
And you know what to do. You have your criteria. It comes to the table. It's going to be a buy and hold. Maybe you could burr it. Maybe you could wholesale it. Maybe you could flip it. But you know that any deal that comes and falls into the criteria, you're going to make money off of it. So I think it's smart, quite honestly, if you ask me, because let's say you were just doing buy and hold, right? If it doesn't meet your cash flow numbers and rehab and all that stuff, then it's like, all right, cool. There's nothing I can do with it. However, you can wholesale, you can fix and flip it. And you know what I'm saying? So I think it's a smart way to structure it.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, and true story. So I go through this in my webinar, but I had a deal back in earlier this year, I think back in May, where it was in a very affluent neighborhood in Philadelphia, in Roxborough. There was a Starbucks at the corner, so it was definitely a good neighborhood. The size of the property was about 15 square feet. It was a twin home. It was a 4-bedroom house. It was zoned single family, but I felt like I could but I felt like going through the right process, I could make it a duplex with the right lawyer, in my corner. So my goal was to, buy the property and rehab it. So I got it under contract for a good price. But there was a squatter in the property. It wound up being the owner's brother that refused to leave. We even offered him, cash for keys. He refused to leave. At that point, when he refused to leave, I talked to my lawyer. I said, listen, this is the scenario. I really want him to get out. What's the process and what's the time length to him getting out if we have to go through the legal process? After all was said and done, he said, well, if you go through the right process and legal process, because it's still during COVID, it may take you 8 to 9 months to get him out of there. Possibly. At that point, I said, no, I have to pivot. I wind up wholesaling the property, found a cash buyer, and my wholesale assignment fee was $86,000. True story. Can't make it up. So just imagine me not knowing how to wholesale. I'd have been stuck in that box of, I'm gonna hold on to it. I'm gonna play it out for 9 months, which is not a bad thing because I mean the numbers worked out well for the duplexes. If I would have bought it and rehabbed it and had everything go well with the construction and the zoning, my cash flow would have been about $1,300 a month, and I would have had probably about maybe $100,000 of equity in the property. So it worked. So it would have worked out well. But it's just the things you don't know. You don't know if 8 or 9 months the house will burn down or whatever happens, COVID happens, whatever. You don't know that type of stuff. So I wasn't willing to chance it and forego $86,000. That's not gonna happen.
Definitely. That's amazing, man. So Justin, I gotta ask you, Philly is on fire right now.
Right.
You can't, if you're in real estate in any capacity, follow investors or whatever the case is, like Philly is where it's at. So can you tell us more about just the developments? You alluded to it earlier, the developments you've seen in South Philly, but just how Philly has changed over the years and what you're seeing now in the Philly real estate market? Because clearly there's some great things going on.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing a lot of great things with, changing neighborhoods. So it's like, for example, Temple area, right? That was one of the first neighborhoods, near college where it's like, it's developing. So that was years ago, right? Before I even got started in real estate. Then you had South Philly, where they started looking at, Market Street to South Street to Washington Avenue to Broad Street and developing that area. So you're seeing a lot of new construction. You're seeing a lot of development because they really want to, in my opinion, make it similar to like New York City, right? And so, there's a lot of development going on, but I do feel like people are feeling like they're being pushed out, unfortunately. And so, but yeah, Philly is booming. Philly is definitely booming. There are a lot of, I would say, neighborhoods that are, having these, what I call like pop-up shops, like, where it's a shop here, then all of a sudden it's another shop here, and it pops up over there, and then you have a bar over here, and so next thing you know, you have a bicycle rack over here, and so you see these neighborhoods being gentrified, where it's like, oh, okay, now they're walking a dog, now they're out here, playing the piano outside, and so that didn't always be, used to be in that neighborhood, but now you see the effects of, from this neighborhood, from their growing to now pushing this neighborhood to a certain development.
Definitely. And I got to ask you as well, as a local who's from Philly, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on seeing neighborhood you grew up in and places you're familiar with develop and change over time? Obviously, there are different sides to it. So right. I'm curious to hear your perspective as someone who's, you're not a stranger, right? This is your home. Right. This is your city.
So I think it has it's good and bad, right? So when I think of that senior citizen, they could be on a fixed income and their taxes are rising annually, right? That's not a good thing for them. But I would say that the city of Philadelphia has put some things in place, like the tax abatement process, or I'm sorry, not tax abatement, but the I think it's the homestead or something like that, where it prevents the property taxes from rising. The tax abatement really, in my opinion, and I use it, is really for developers, right? So that's really helping developers, where we're gaining the benefits of rehabbing a property, right? I think that in areas where, you saw a lot of vacant properties in the area, to see those neighborhoods now be developed is a good thing, right? It's an excellent thing because, you want to see property values and you want to see neighborhoods where a whole block was demolished. You want to see that neighborhood come together and be developed. So it's a good thing. And once again, I do feel like, there are certain parts of it where, your grandmother or senior citizens not being pushed out, but obviously the taxes are getting to a point where they can't afford it, then that's the issue. But once again, I think with Philadelphia, they've at least made it to a point where they're able to protect senior citizens from crazy high taxes.
Definitely. Just out of curiosity, regarding the taxes, do you feel like they've been proactive in saying, oh, here are the senior citizens we have, let's say, I don't know, in whatever neighborhood, who may be in this position where the tax might be too high? Or is it more so like, if you have the information and you deliver it to your grandmother, so how is it set up?
So no, they've been proactive. I can't say in the beginning they were, but I would say now they're definitely proactive. With sending out information to everyone, so that way they know the programs they have available to them in the city of Philadelphia. So they've been proactive for sure. Councilmen, city council, things of that nature. They've definitely been proactive in educating people about the strategies or the programs for taxes. So yes, absolutely.
Definitely. So, Justin, what does the future look like for your business, your company? What are some things that you wanna do next year and the years to come?
So I definitely want to continue to build my rental property portfolio, right? But I also want to be able to build a program for students where they can win, right? I know for me, if it wasn't for a mentor, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't even be talking to you today, right? So I have a real estate program where I'm taking people that are novice, and some are actually already, have a property or two, but they don't understand how to find off-market deals. They don't understand how to renovate. They're buying the normal, regular way of buying a property, which is okay. But I want to teach people the different way where it allows you to, build cash flow as well as not have to use your own money, right? Because it's power in using other people's money, whether it's seller financing, private money, lines of credit, things of that nature. So I'm building a program now for students that are coming into the program to really help them find off-market deals that are discounted and go from there.
Definitely. And how can people find more information out about the programs and different things you're offering?
Yep. So I'm doing I'm doing a program now that's free of charge. It's free content. You can register at masterthesteps.com. Once again, masterthesteps.com. And so on that website, you'll register for it and you'll get the free class that walks you through what I did to now resign from my job and how I built my real estate business. For those that want mentorship, you can go to hardworkovertime.com and apply online for the mentorship. The reason why I have people apply is because I want to make sure people have the same values that I do in the program. So if you want to be mentored, I want to make sure that, that you're really focused, that you're willing to invest the time, money into yourself to build your business, right? So this is not for anybody that just wants to say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna do real estate. I'm gonna get right into it and not have the time commitment or the resources possible to invest in their education as well as their own business. So hardworkovertime.com for the mentorship, for the free training is masterthesteps.com.
Love it. Man, this has been just such an amazing story. It's almost like I'm thinking about a headline in my head, because you in the very beginning you mentioned that you were facing layoff. You didn't know if you were gonna have a job, and at that point you're like, all right, I know these brothers at church who are in real estate. Let me talk to them. Let me see if they can help me out. And you got into your first deal. And from there, over the next couple of years, your business grew and got to a point where you're like, I think it's time to do this full time. And, you've developed the company into a deal machine at this point. Just getting deals. That's the other headline that went through my head. I'm already thinking about memes or something. But you're at a point now where you're getting deals coming in and you can go in multiple directions with them. And, I just think it's just a testament to just trying your best to start something, tapping into mentorship and not being afraid to adjust. Something else you mentioned is the second deal, you weren't able to get it the same way you got the first one. But I'm sure over the years you've had to pivot, you've had to adjust to the market, you had to adjust to different people on your team. There's a number of different things. So, I definitely think it's a very, very inspirational story that I can't wait to share.
No, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it for sure. I mean, listen, this journey hasn't been easy, and it's still bumps and bruises. But I think overall, when I look back at my journey and see where I am now, I wouldn't have had it any way different. I wouldn't have changed anything about it, because it's a part of life. It's a part of growth, right? It's a part of, having faith. I'm a believer in just having faith in God and guiding you through. So sometimes you need things in life that help you get to that different level, where you have more faith in God because you're facing adversity. So there's a verse in the Bible that talks about, if you face adversity, if you quit when facing adversity, you have small strength. So I want to say that I have a lot of strength. So when it comes to adversity, I definitely don't quit, definitely don't give up.
Definitely love it. And one last question. What is some advice you would give to someone who maybe is in the same position you were in? They're kind of at their job. They've reached the ceiling. They're interested in real estate. They're a little bit hesitant, a little bit afraid. They don't know how to go about it. What's the one piece of advice you would give to somebody in that position?
Masterthesteps.com.
I love it. I love the
plug. I mean, obviously, masterthesteps.com, mentorship, hardworkovertime.com. But truthfully, not joking. I would say that evaluate your passion, right? Evaluate what you're passionate about. To be honest with you, and I know we're out of time, but to be honest with you, I don't really like doing real estate, right? I love teaching. So the reason I got into real estate, once again, is to provide for my family. So when I saw I could do that and make six figures and more, I said, I'm gonna do real estate. But after a time, I felt like, what's the purpose, but I felt like I can be used somewhere else, right? Used in a different capacity, in a greater capacity, I would say. So that's why, for me, mentorship and teaching is so important, because I'm excited about that. There's nothing that excites me about, fixing the property up. I mean, other than me seeing it, for the first time, and I see that it needs to be completely rehabbed, and then my guys rehab it and it's beautiful. That's great, right? But it doesn't really impact people. So I want to impact people. So I would say, for the person that's looking to do something else, they're at their 9 to 5, first really evaluate what you're passionate about. I don't want anybody going to any field based off of money. Now, I did that, and so I'm not saying that it's a completely bad thing, but I would say that take a step back and evaluate what you're passionate about. And if you find that real estate is the answer, then maybe you do that on a part-time basis to see how it goes, right? Because you don't just want to chase money, right? You want to make sure that your life has meaning, in my opinion. So I would say, look at that. Look at your time as well, too, to figure out what you can do with your time to maximize your effort, right? Because real estate, whether it's Bitcoin, whatever it may be, right? Open up a clothing store, it takes time. So evaluate your time, your passion, and then finances. Get your finances in order, whether it's your credit, you saving, not buying the latest Air Jordans, do that. And then, start learning, right? So after you do all that, start learning, get into the lab, read books, get a mentor, get a coach, and start doing that.
Definitely. Love it. And where can people find you on social and just however you would prefer people to contact you? Can you let the audience know?
Yeah. So you can go to Justin is my coach on Instagram. So Justin is my coach on Instagram. My website, you can go once again to find me. It's hardworkovertime.com for the mentorship program, and it's masterthesteps.com for the free training. So definitely hit me up on Instagram. I don't have Twitter, so I think Instagram is probably the best thing. Or once again, the program or the free training.
Awesome. One more thing that I realized. So your Instagram is Justin is my coach, teaching, and you were an educator. And I think it's interesting how pursuing real estate still allows you to teach, which is what you love to do, but obviously at a different rate.
Right. And I mean, once again, like, that's why I wouldn't change it, right? I wouldn't change my journey, right? Because although I resigned because I saw dollar signs and I saw that I could make six figures and more during real estate, right? I still had that hunger and passion to teach, to do what I'm passionate about, right? So now I get up every morning like, all right, I got these deals coming in, but guess what? I got students that are closing properties in Ohio. I got a student that's buying a fourplex in Harrisburg, right? So to hear their stories, like, yo, I was at square one in the beginning, but now I got a property in Harrisburg that I never would have thought I would have purchased because of the program. I'm like, man, that's just like phenomenal. I had not a student, but someone that had the free training today. He actually, DM? So he DM'd me, I guess, his story. Where on his story, he showed a bunch of notes from the free class that I had. So I was like, man, that almost brought tears to my eyes. I'm like, yo, you making a story out of the notes that I or out of the lesson that I taught. And that's your story. And I'm like, man, like that just brings joy to my heart that somebody's like really, getting information and applying it and taking it all in. So yeah, man, listen, I'm passionate about teaching, man. And that's what it is, man. That's what it is.
Definitely, man. I can tell. You almost jumped out the chair.
Right. Right. No. It's nothing like changing somebody's life, right? Nothing like that to see. Yeah, let me stop next. I can go on and on and on. But it's nothing like changing somebody's life.
Pull out the whiteboard.
Right. And I have two kids, man, just to see them grow. My oldest daughter is getting ready to start driving. Well, she's driving now, but getting her license soon. So it's like, man, like to see her small, and now I'm teaching her how to drive, teaching her how to park. It's like, man, it's like changing lives is so crucial, and I'm hoping that, whoever I teach can now teach somebody else, right? Because the person that mentored me, like it wasn't about me enrolling his program. It was about him being, mindful and really being thoughtful of like somebody else, which is me, like my goals, like, being aware that I'm trying to reach to a place where he's at, and he was willing to be a servant. So I want to serve other people. And then if that person that I'm serving serves other people, then it can be a whole world of servants. So, it all works out.
Definitely. Love it, man. Love it. Well, Justin, really, really appreciate you coming on the show. I'm very excited to play this back and put it out, but definitely appreciate you coming on the show, and definitely look forward to being in touch as well.
Yep. Thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Well, thank you again, everyone, for listening to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. Please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast on whichever platform you're listening to this on. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. We are shouting out any 5-star rating and reviews we receive, so looking forward to seeing your reviews. Also, if you want to join the Bread Real Estate investing community, go to blackrealestatedialogue.com or click the link below in the show notes, and you can start for your first 7 days for just $1. Thank you all so much. I look forward to hearing from you all soon.
Hi, everyone. Sam here from the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Make sure to hit that notification bell and that subscribe button, and to visit us at blackrealestatedialogue.com.